Today I'm talking to Stefan Vermeulen. He is Dutch, he is a CPA and owns D&V Accounting Services. This is a specialized BPO or KPO that deals with bookkeeping, finance and accounting services, and this can help you with your finances but also gives you insight into a specialist BPO service.
I'm Stefan, Dutch, in Manila already for over 10 years, although I must say since 2011 full-time. I'm basically here for a business reason, because, although I'm married to a Filipina, that's not the reason I'm here, because we were living in Holland, but that's the reason I know the Philippines quite well. But basically in 2008, 2009, I was working for big corporates, in this case Shell. They were moving jobs overseas. So I thought this is a great opportunity for Dutch accounting firms. And this is back in 2008, so that's how I started. So I started to build a business, back office for Dutch accounting firms, together with a partner. Eventually I let that go, and now I'm focusing on the English-speaking market. So Philippines is a great place, economy is booming. It's really a place of great talent. So this is where the action is, so I guess that's why I'm here. The environment in the Philippines or economic opportunity, well, if you compare today, 2017, with 2006 or 2007, oh my God, big difference. I mean, the viewer cannot see it, but I'm looking outside at an area which is Global Bonifacio City, which didn't exist 10 years ago. It's nothing. That's now an area full of residential, high-end buildings and also commercial. So economy is booming, 8% growth. I don't do the math, but if you compare it 10 years ago, that's huge growth. If you look at the foreigners here, the restaurants, the quality of life, completely different than 10 years ago. So basically it has been a really interesting journey to see the country grow. It also means there's a whole middle class now coming up here in the Philippines. Basically today, that's also what I tell people here. Before, when you were a Filipino and you really wanted to make a lot of money and a good quality of life, you needed to travel or basically move abroad. These days, you can still do that. And I think still 1 out of 12 Filipinos or 1 out of 10 or something is living abroad, right? A lot of really good, talented people. But today, because the work is also coming here, thanks to the internet, globalization, all the IT, all the technological developments, you don't need to move abroad anymore. You can actually live here and make really, really good money. So that's nice to see actually, and that's a big change with, they say, 10 years ago. And I'm not even talking the first time that I came here was in 2000. That seems like ancient history now. Well, in terms of skill development is one thing, but also the market in itself. Because indeed, like you said, 20 years ago, it's basically call center, sales, etc. Big companies going first. What you see today, and this is also more our target market, for instance, is more the SMEs or the small and medium-sized entities, and that's a bit of a broad term. It can also be actually quite sizable companies with a couple of $100 million revenues. But even these companies now, these businesses, they can also outsource. And that's a big difference with 20 years ago. I guess this is always how it works, right? The big companies start, and then the SMEs they will just follow. And if you compare now, for instance, a couple of years ago, in accounting, that's basically our field, so that's what I'm talking about. 5 years ago, we didn't know anything about Australian accounting. Today, we have an Australian compliance team with, I would say, experts who have a few years working for Australian accounting firms under their belt. They know how to do specific, Australian compliance, financial statements, tax returns. Still a lot of them under the guidance of managers in Australia. But there's a lot of expertise. So we are already at the stage where basically you can say as a business in Australia as a good example, you can basically outsource your books or your accounts here to the Philippines. And the expertise is already there. Not necessarily only with us, but generally in the whole industry. That's simply because there's so much business coming here. And of course, this is basically what happens if you train good, talented people for a couple of years. And you talk about talent. What I see is actually, and this is also what I tell clients sometimes, if people are good and they worked for you for 2-3 years, why don't you offer them a job in Australia? Or why don't you offer them a job in Holland? So that happened to us. We actually had people that started with us, stayed 3 years, and now they work for a client in Australia, in Holland, for Western salaries, which is cool. So that says also something about clients. It's not about cheap. It's not only about cost saving. See, the key thing that we see for growth is access to talent. Sometimes even accounting firms, Australia, San Francisco, London, Holland, they look at me and say, Stefan, we cannot find people. So they have this sweet spot. It's almost like 1-2 years experience up to 5 years experience. They're not there. We cannot find them. And even if we find them, then we cannot make it work just cost-wise. So, but just the latter part, the first part is just, the access to talent. And then if they have good people, they're actually willing, and that's what I always like when they do that, they're actually willing to say, okay, then hey, try a life-changing event, right? We'll bring you overseas. And if, of course, then the question is, do they want that? But hey, like I said earlier, 1 out of 10 Filipinos works abroad. And for us, that's cool, because we just mean we have a team of 4 or 5 for that client, 1 goes abroad, and we'll hire anyone. So it's almost like a talent pipeline, if that makes sense. I still believe you need to specialize, but I think if you look at the Philippines, if you need talent that understands the culture and certain specifics of Australia, or any English-speaking market, Canada, UK, US, of course, yes, they're there. Singapore, Hong Kong, yes. So we get questions sometimes from Hungary, can you do our financial statements? The answer was no. We don't have the expertise. Are we expert in taxes in Germany? No. But what we do is when we get the need, to see the thing is with the talent entrepreneurs, you look at your need, and then you see what you have to source locally, and what you can source internationally. And sometimes I'm actually kidding, is that you give everything to us, and what we don't know, we just outsource to your tax accountant wherever you're based. But it means that you hire the big guns when you really need them. In other words, you pay for value. You don't need to hire anymore a very expensive person who doesn't want to do bookkeeping, for instance, of course, because they're expensive, so they charge a lot of money. You don't have to hire them anymore. You can actually bring it here. We learn every day, so we get smarter, and then you just hire locally the help and assistance where you need it. And this is a big difference with 5-10 years ago. Yes, of course, the talent, because there's other things as well, because what we see, and again, this is for accounting, but we have also people that worked abroad, they actually come back. It's balikbayan, as they call it here, I believe. Great people, fantastic people. I know already a lot of Filipinos in New York, and I'm just talking about accountants, really talented people in really blue chip companies, senior positions. And some of them, if they want to come back, we have a couple of headhunters, and I tell them immediately, I'm interested, we'll find a job for them later. Our client for them is easy. So really good, talented people. So they come back, of course, they bring also the expertise, the understanding of the culture. It's still a plus, of course, if you have been somewhere for a couple of years. But generally, as I said, this is also what I tell entrepreneurs, that the first thing you need to learn is you have to manage a virtual team. And when you manage a virtual team, there's a Harvard business course about that. It's a skill. So sometimes it doesn't work. Why? Because they don't know how to manage a virtual team. It has to do with, you have to recognize people. It's still, generally sometimes they ask me, what do you have to do to make it work? And I say it's training, communication, and relationships. So if I look at the clients that we have, and the projects that we have for a couple of years that went smooth, without any hiccups, that really best case scenarios, training was there. Why people came here. They spent 2-3 weeks here. They trained the people. Our staff went there, overseas, whether it's US or anywhere, Australia. So training was sorted. Then also the relationship was there, because they come here, and then the Filipinos make you do terrible things. They make you eat some stuff, and they let you do karaoke and all that stuff. But it builds it, it's teamwork. It builds the relationship. And it also helps communication. And communication is important because the weakness of the model, whether we like it or not, the weakness of our model is the terror of distance. And no matter of all the technology, still it helps when you sit sometimes in one room. And to combat that, to address that terror of distance, as I say, you need really clear communication, which means deliverables, deadlines, turnaround time. What do I deliver daily? Now, again, the challenge is that some entrepreneurs or that some on the other side start to micromanage. That's again the big pitfall that I always say that you shouldn't do. So actually, it's a bit output-driven management. I don't know how to explain actually, but that's so. If I look at it as if you don't do micromanagement. Learn how to work with a virtual team, and those 3 things, then it actually works. Well, there's two things actually. You were asking me whether people start outsourcing with finance or accounting or another role. Obviously, most of them that we see is the ones that start with accounting, because that's what we offer. But we have a lot of cases where, honestly, they come here on a tour or just on a fact-finding mission, and they end up after a week doing things that they didn't think they would do before. They might come here, hey, we might save cost, but after a week they realize, hey, I can actually do things that I was, all of a sudden, especially entrepreneurs, they get zillions of ideas, lead generation, sales, or whatever, that they thought they couldn't do before. But if it's accounting and they look at it, usually what they want to do, if it's a business, it's accounts payable, bank record, which is a relatively safe area to start. Having said that, we also had instances where we started with management reporting. We meet a CFO and the CFO says, listen, all my books, accounts, reconciliations, all sorted, I'm happy, but I actually could use somebody with a bit more education, talented person who will help me with a monthly close or helping me prepare reports for the board. So that's actually a good role as well to start. But generally, if you ask me, generally it's usually accounts payable, bank record, it's a good way to start. So it's true, that's why we start. The reason we do accounting, by the way, is because I'm an accountant. Maybe I should have said that in the beginning. Like you said, if outsourcing is not only about bringing cheap labor or the routine or the mundane stuff here, but actually if you look at it, this is also what I tell clients sometimes, it's like, generally speaking, they say, okay, we have the routine stuff, we bring it to Manila, which is a bit of overseas, right? Whether it's India or Philippines, structured. So we put them in almost like in a factory setting. And then the high-end stuff we keep basically onshore. Sometimes what I tell, what I tell clients is we've used technology. Basically, it's much better today, or it's actually possible today. Is what you do is you automate the mundane and routine stuff as much as you can. And not always everything can be automated, but it's getting better every day. So start there. And then the part that is basically high-end, then it's a question, okay, how do you source it? How do you solve your need? Is it process-driven? Do you need to understand the business? Does it really have to be close to the CEO, close to the business? It depends. It's really tailor-made solution. But there's no reason why that high-end stuff you cannot bring to the Philippines. As a matter of fact, that's where you get the real value. Because that's where you get, because like I mentioned earlier, it's like with business intelligence or with all this technical software, the skills that you get here is really fantastic. Unbelievable. I've never been that good myself. Unbelievable how talented they are. So it's really the software, the skills, and then you just need to address the fact that they are in a different location and a different culture. But if you address that, that's where you really get the benefits of outsourcing, I think. So use automation, get rid of the mundane and repetitive tasks, and focus on the high-end stuff and find the right balance between onshore and offshore. That's really a good approach. It's access to talent and also at a reasonable price. It's basic, but it's always like value for money, right? So are you really going to do it if it's going to cost you a few $100,000 onshore? That's a big risk. You need to think about it. And you can only do maybe one. It's also, you need access to capital. Do you have the money? But now all of a sudden you can do much more. And this is what I generally see, and it's not necessarily only with us, but generally in the industry, what I see, because we only do the accounting part, but what I see is they come here and after a while they have a team of 20, 30 elsewhere, just doing all that lead generation or sales or whatever they had in mind, just to generate extra business. Well, I would get back to the three things I mentioned earlier. It's training, communication, relationships. It's basically in that regard. So the first thing is you manage a virtual team in a different culture. And sometimes I say in a big corporate, so being able to manage a team in a cross-cultural setting, that's a skill. And you need to understand that. So it's a different culture. So the first thing I always say, culture trumps everything. I've seen very nice people doing the wrong things with the best intentions, ruining the relationship, which is very hard to repair, honestly. That if that happens, and especially if they have a bad day, they start over the email, they complain, you have to manage it. So it's basically culture, manage the team, and don't forget also to put, there's a face behind the email. That's what I mean with make some effort. It's your team, They work for you. It's like an employee, and that's one thing. The other thing is training. Don't expect that you start outsourcing. Even with us, we have a lot of experience. I'm very proud of what we do. We have great know-how and expertise, especially in certain jurisdictions. But if you just look at us and you just throw it over the email, you think, good luck and it will work, we will also suffer. There's more to it. So we also need to be trained. Like anybody, we also need to grow into the role. So we need some guidance and help there as well. And what I've seen, for instance, people start and we do it over the email and everything is on Skype, which is fine. But I have instances where I really said, listen, now it's time. You need to be in one room. So either you come here or we go there. I don't care. I'm happy to sponsor it even. So in some cases, you just need to, then just spend some quality time, 5 days in one office, just focusing. I have done it before. Partners of accounting firms, CFOs, I tell them, listen, just come to Manila, come to the Philippines, look at our office. We give them a tour. You can see we're not only basic stuff. This is, again, we can do business intelligence, management reporting, financial reporting. You get ideas. Plus, nobody will disturb you when you're here. You can actually get some work done. Plus, you've seen the surroundings. You get a lot of buy-in like that. So generally speaking, but again, it's training, relationship, communication. Culture trumps everything is one of my favorites, to be honest. But because I think really people underestimate the impact of cultural impact. Because honestly, I've been in so many. I've been traveling since I was 25. Been in so many different cultures. But even I make a lot of mistakes even today. Because in essence, I'm still a blunt, rude Dutch guy, I guess. You know what I mean? So you need to understand. There's a different perception. So I can see that a lot. I wouldn't say we're the same. No. Basically, if you need a trusted advisor, and your trusted advisor of a business owner is somebody who helps you if you buy another business, tax structuring. How does that work? Gives you high-end advice. Knows you very well, knows the name of your wife, knows the name of your children, It understands your culture. It's a really strong relationship. There's a reason why it's a highly fragmented market, because you can only handle so many clients. So that's not what we do. So we're an extension of a practice. See, if you compare us, it's better to compare us with a bookkeeping firm. So honestly, if you have a bookkeeping firm onshore, UK, US, Canada, or here, and you compare it with us, I think we give more and better value for money. That's what I think. Honestly, if we would be the same price, I think it's better to still deal with us. Why? Because you will save money on your bill with your tax accountant eventually. I can be not so modest because I'm not doing the work. All the people here are doing the work. But that's what I truly believe in. See, on the other stuff, tax returns, we can do a lot of it, but we still need some help locally. Because that's not about processing the stuff only. It's also about advice, So, because honestly, I have people here, they do Dutch tax returns for me in Dutch. And I always say, as long as the owner doesn't get divorced and he doesn't buy a business or doesn't do any other weird stuff, it's 99.5% accurate. So it's not rocket science. So, and especially in the English-speaking market, of course, we get better every day. See, but the thing is, there's a difference. You have taxes, which is still very much jurisdiction-driven. But even in the States, people talk in the States, 50 states, state taxes. It's even understand the taxes in the States is already ridiculous, complex. So, but that's taxes. But if you look at what we really do, management reporting, financial reporting, monthly accounting, key performance indicator reports, weekly sales reports, all that stuff, that's not different per jurisdiction, that's international. That's why I liked finance accounting when I started a long time ago as an internal auditor. I always say debit is left, credit is right, and that's the same everywhere. So you just need good people. So the challenge for us is more like, even when we get new people, understanding the software, they picked it up quickly. It's more the nitty gritty, the specifics of that business. Whether it's a real estate business, whether it's a manufacturing business or whatever. Do you understand the business? So that's also what we're looking at. Maybe we should specialize. So that's how we compare between an accounting firm and here. Yeah, in terms of case studies, best practices, how we started with a couple of clients. Yes, basically today's 2017 or August, almost September 2017. In early 2012, we started with one person basically, from scratch. So the clients that are with us since, let's say 2013, there's a couple of big ones. Typically starting with 1 or 2 FTE. Again, the best cases, they came here, they trained for about 3-4 weeks. They trained them. 6 months later, they went to, in this case, Australia. Start with 2 people. Then what happens is that, somebody in, because what we see is that usually people don't get fired. What happens is that there's turnover, people resign, there's natural attrition. So basically what happens is then slowly they look, okay, somebody resigns, hey, what are we going to do? Is this a role that has to be done here, or can we actually use an overseas, a company overseas? And then they look at it, and sometimes 80% can be overseas, 20%, so they change it, they make some changes, and then we'll move it here. And what we've seen is that we've started with 1 or 2, there are now 4 people or 5 people. See, for us it's a bit different because we are a bit special in the sense that we have close to 200 people, but we also have 170, 180 clients. So we have a lot of smaller clients because for 20% of our business revenues, we're actually a bookkeeping company. And of course, when you have a bookkeeping company, you have a lot of smaller businesses. So our biggest client is actually only 10 FTE. So that's again a good example. That's a professional services firm based in rural Australia. So first of all, this is rural Australia, very hard to get talent. But again, nobody gets fired because they need people. It's actually, they always have a shortage of good people. If you would walk in tomorrow in their office, you can probably start the next day if you have the proper qualifications. Again, they have 60 people. So I talked to the owner, I said 2 years ago I had 60 people. I still have 60 people or 65, so I grew a little bit. But now 10 are here. So it's just that the mix changes. And of course it changes the culture of that company and how you manage it, and you have to, and he did all the right things because he says basically again every quarter somebody of them is visiting us, team is going there. If there's a team meeting, they put basically a video or whatever, a camera in the middle, and without the team knowing here for 50 pair of eyes are looking at them, but at least they feel part of the meeting, of that company as well. So generally speaking, especially for those teams, it's very important that the team feels part of the client's family, if I can phrase it like that, and also feels comfortable in our environment. And if those 2 things are both cool, then it works. Generally speaking, the best way to describe it, so we are a finance and accounting company. So sometimes I'm actually teasing, so we're an accounting company. In the old days, you only could have clients around the corner. Now you can have them overseas. I'm always, sometimes my lousy Dutch sense of humor, I say, hey, we have clients all over the globe. We even have clients in the Philippines. Because also, but in onboarding, so it depends, because we have standardized processes. So if it's finance and accounting, it depends if it's accounts payable, is it compliance, which jurisdiction, what software. But let's say, for instance, now we have a NetSuite client from San Francisco. So we involve our NetSuite team with US experience. Sometimes what happens is that they are not available, we hire a new person, but then we make sure that our NetSuite expertise is involved, and then also somebody with the relevant US experience is involved. So it's a team. So the thing is, what we try to do is it's not seat leasing, it's not staff leasing, which is cool, and in some cases that works, and then probably we're not the right choice. But if you need more than that, then we are a good choice. And especially because of our niche and our specialization, we offer you a solution. So we have a lot of small clients, half an FTE, 1 FTE. Their challenge is continuity, backup. What happens if that person leaves? Now, this is where we come in with our standardized approach, with our backup and continuity, business continuity planning. So even if you're a small entrepreneur, you have 1/3 of an FTE, or 20, 30 hours a month, you might have a team in your kickoff meeting. Again, standardized approach, but that's 3 people. And it's also different levels. So it might also be if we have a lot of clients, it's 1 FTE, but there's some accounts payable stuff, but there's also some analytics. And it's also a small part in small businesses. But it means it's not the same person. So we have a lot of cases where it's 1 FTE, where it's spread over 2 people. And in some cases even 3 people, which is in a way has its pros and cons. But the good thing is that at least you get the expertise and the skill set that you need, where you need it, that's English. Plus, automatically, because there's more than 1 person involved, you have a team and there's continuity, there's backup. It's almost like it never stops, which is also cool because you will also get turnover. Because, also people in the Philippines sometimes move on. We have people, 80% of, not 80%, but the people that 80% of the people that resign, they go abroad. So people move, and they go abroad. So also you need to address that, just get ready. It depends a little bit still on what kind of software, but let's say you're an entrepreneur from Australia, you use a cloud-based software called Xero. We have a lot of experience there. So then we will not tell you, but we will try to build it in such a way that we've done it before, that it's actually successful. We've also instances where we started and we also saw the pitfalls in the beginning, where we actually almost stopped the project and we said, hey, this is most likely this is not going to work. And I had cases where I stopped it and said, we can continue in this journey, it will be 50-50 success rate. But if we do this, it will be, close to 100 success rate. And then it's up to the client. But still, there's a tailor-made element in there, because each business is different. But of course, because we've done it before, we've now a couple of years experience, and especially if it's accounting, that's what we do, that's what we know how to do. We actually have our standardized approach. But this is also the good thing, because we have the Australian compliance team, we have a Xero excellence team, we have a QuickBooks team. It's even by software, it's by jurisdiction. So we bring in those people. So that's the good thing. And it's also good for staff, because they also have access to peers and other, a bit more senior and experienced people that they can actually ask questions and actually can go to, rather than always, having to go on Skype asking the counterpart, but also the entrepreneur sometimes doesn't know. Well, cost benefit wise, or how much money do you save? I always use the example, I think it was one of the senior CFOs of one of the bigger clients that we had. He told me a couple of years ago already, he said, Stefan, it's very simple, our savings is 60%. And then we lose 10% again on communication or extra things that we have to build around it to make it work. But then so that cuts our costs in half. That's how he looked at it. And usually what we found is that budget is usually freed up in absolute money to do other things. But that's one thing. But again, if you really, the big savings are using combination of technology, automation, and location. In this case, where do you source your labor, basically, or where do you put your team? But that's where the big savings are. But generally speaking, it's at 50%. So anywhere between 40 and 60 is not unrealistic. But sometimes it's good also, this is what I like about Mike actually, whether you like his approach or not, but what he does is he just explains, because he actually uses our boardroom sometimes, but when they come, they don't know anything about Philippines, and then what he explains is the 7 or the 5 or the 7 stages, which is cool. Because even if I'm an entrepreneur, I tell them, okay, you're an entrepreneur, you have a need, right? So you wake up this morning, you put up your laptop, you have your phone, and basically the world is yours. Or how is the English expression? The world is your oyster or whatever. So basically what you need to do, okay, this is what I need. So first what you can do, there's a middleman in Australia, and there's a middleman company like DNV in the Philippines, and there's a staff. What you can do is cut us, and that's the first thing I would do, right? Go straight to the staff. So if you look at the developments in terms of modern labor, maybe the Upwork, or the freelancer.com, I have clients that works for them, which is fine. Then you just deal directly with the staff. What we know, it doesn't work sometimes because it's not reliable, and then what happens if the staff leaves or the staff gets lonely, typical Philippines. We get a lot of applicants, they have done that, and then they're fed up. Because they're like, okay, I'm just working from home, and now I'm also a little bit fed up. Working from home is nice, maybe one day, twice, but it's nice to have this colleagues, office mates, friends. That's how it works here. So if that's fine, but then there's 7 steps. Then you can choose, and then maybe if you need a really a specialized service, you have a need in finance and accounting, and you want as least headache as possible, then we're a good choice. So just a matter of where. But that's why these tours work for us very well, because it means it's also, we educate them, and then a lot of them that might choose us, although we're not a good choice, they also go to others already, or the other way around.
Yeah.
So that's actually why it works for us. But see, this is the thing, because I'm Dutch. So why don't I have a big client base in Holland? Why do I have a client base in Australia and the US? Usually you have to explain staff here that I'm not Australian. Not that I mind, I like Australia, but it's really funny because in their mind, we have 80% Australian client base, why are you not Aussie? I said, yeah, but that's actually cool. But in Holland, for instance, automation is actually quite advanced.
Right.
But the other thing is, and that's the key thing, is language. So still in the big companies, it doesn't matter, English is the language. But in the lot of small and medium-sized entities, our client base, even the bigger ones, it's still Dutch, which is still, and this is the same in Germany. So that's why for us it's also not a good target market. That's why we still focus on the English-speaking market. But generally speaking, see, this is another approach that we have. I didn't even mention it, but you have the people-driven approach, but it's also the product-driven approach. See, in Australia, you have self-managed super funds, which is a very specific pension fund. Now, we have so much experience with it, we can do it actually per product. So there's two approaches, right? You can say we build your own team. So we hire 5 people and we can train them, you can train them, doesn't matter, but you have your own team, fine, and they produce what you need. It's being reviewed Australia, and then you talk to the client. But there's other clients already that we've seen of other companies in Australia in this case. They actually look at it and said, no, I just need X amount of SMSF, self-managed super funds, done a year. I care about the minimum amount of quality, and if you can deliver that, I don't care. It's a completely different approach. So you just tell you this, and then it's getting commoditized, right? So that's also another approach, and it's getting there as well. Because what we've seen, we have one client actually, they need about, I think, 160 financial statements. It's a UK based, and 160 financial statements a year. So we do that for them, and for us it's actually great. Why? Because they don't have to be done all the time in every month, so we can actually just agree on an X amount a month. And then we just have people do it all over the company. It's nice for them to get experience, but we just have a core team that reviews, takes ownership and accountability for the quality. So they just review it. So that means that in terms of culture, and this is what I like as well, in terms of culture, we're becoming actually an accounting firm. We are an accounting firm in terms of culture, much more than a general outsourcing firm, with all the plus and the minus that brings. So if you come in our office, you won't see anybody jumping on the table, you won't see any creative stuff on the walls. It's really what you expect from an accounting firm, I guess. It's much more trusted advice. Accounting, it's a different concept, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, you cannot compare. But it's a bit like, see, if you own a temp agency in the Netherlands, of course, immediately you have thousands of people. Right?
Yeah.
See, I used to be CFO of a security company.
Yeah.
We had a subsidiary in the States that had 9,000 people.
Yeah.
But it's more like a temp agency almost, like, because it's
labor
labor hire.
managing the sort of payroll kind of thing. It's kind of, you take
different.
a ticket on the
Yeah, it's
payroll.
not like if you are a advertising firm or so. It's a different model. But anyway, so we, within our niche, we're doing well. But what I see as well as staff, they have 11,000 staff, and they tell me we have 5% turnover. Then the first thing I say, well, that's kind of low, but then I realize that's per month.
Yeah. Oh, wow, really?
So 5% turnover per month, that's a lot. You need more than 1,000 people. Just to, it's crazy. You need to basically replace more than half of your staff every year. That's also generally speaking. So if you look at the industry, generally it's access to talent, and of course, as long as we have access to talent, we have a model. But that's also key for us. So we are now in Manila, but we also probably go some rural areas as well.
Really?
Yeah, just to see that we get the access to talent as well. Because you get, look at the commercial real estate. It's like 96, 97% occupancy in Manila, Makati,
they're putting up a lot of BGC. Right?
BGC, there's actually
Well,
plenty of
uptown.
space. Yeah. That's why companies are moving there as well, but it's almost hard for them to keep up. But it will be interesting to see what happens, for instance, with this voice recognition. So if there's a big breakthrough in voice recognition that they say that will come, but then they have been saying that already for a long time. So what will happen with the call centers? How is that gonna? That would be interesting to see. But see, the good thing with us, that's why we have a lot of CPAs, young people, so they will grow with their role.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Just embrace technology. Don't be afraid of it.
Yeah.
It's like what's the term, Luddites, if I pronounce it well. It's a little bit the same. Because there's no reason to be scared. And even artificial, because I've done the research now with robotics and accounting. It's coming, but the business case is not yet there in a lot of cases. It's still north of 20,000 US per bot or per process, and then there's a minimum. So before the business case is there for small and medium-sized entities, it will take a while.